Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really pleased to be introducing you to Wendy Tipper, not Wendy Tiptop, as per her Zoom name, who's going to be running this afternoon session. And please do feel free to keep your cameras on or turn them off, whatever works best for you. I like to keep my camera on because it keeps me accountable. But if you want to turn it off and have your lunch, that's not a problem at all. Just do this in a way that works for you. And Wendy's going to have a really great session. I've had like a mini bite-sized version of this with Wendy at the Lido. And it's all about how you can use your values to make better decisions. I believe I've got that right, haven't I, Wendy? Super. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Wendy. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Faye. So yeah, I'll get my slides up in a second. I've just got a few flat slides, not too many. But yeah, Faye and I swim together. She may have told you at the local Lido, which is fantastic. And I think, well, what were we talking about? I can't remember. We were chatting about something in the steam room, and probably last about a month or so ago. And you said about, oh, what's that exercise you do? And I said, oh well, if you want, I'll come and run it for you. So I usually run it as I do leadership development. Resilient leadership development, and among other things, and business coaching and business consultancy. But this is the values exercise. There's a really nice exercise that I do sort of run as part of a bigger leadership development program, which is really around identifying your values, and then thinking about kind of and how we're going to apply those. You may have done some of this before or not, but it's always really good to revisit, because values do kind of slightly sort of through life, what you hold dear to you does slightly change through the course of life. And values, I was thinking, about an inner compass where it's going to take you, how I'm going to make the decisions I'm going to make. Why do things feel right and naturally right, going with this decision versus that decision? And it really comes back to your values, that kind of inner compass, what is really, really important to you. And sometimes when that sort of real irritation you can feel sometimes when you're working with someone or working with a team, that things just feel really out of kilter. And quite often, if you start to look under the skin of it, it's like our values are just so, far apart. What you hold dear, what I hold dear is just so different. So that kind of really being aware of what are my own values, maybe what's the organisational values I'm working with, or what's these individuals within a team, and it starts to, if you can align those, it starts to make a lot of sense, and you can feel the satisfaction, the purpose. You're making decisions that are really fitting with the things that you want to do and drive, and things become a lot clearer. So that's a bit of the kind of why around it. There's lots of other things. You will feel stress if you're mismatched. Your well-being will be affected because that ongoing drain, if you're not doing things that feel right to you, the sorts of things, you will start to notice that in terms of that long-term stress level. So really important to be aware, and try to work towards those. It's not always possible, but if we know where we are with that. So shall I share my slides here? And let me just hang on a minute. Let me just go back to the beginning, because we were just having a quick look through before I started. So if you just give me a minute, I am a Teams user rather than a Zoom user. So always take a few moments to just work this one out.
It's like going from playing squash to tennis, isn't it? Like the close but not
It
quite
is,
close
isn't it?
enough. Yeah.
And then you find things have been repeated. You use them last, and so it's always like, oh, that's different, or that's different, or can you see my screen?
All
Can you
good.
see? Can you see a winding path?
Yeah, got that,
Got that.
Wendy.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. So a little bit about me. My name's Wendy Tipper, rather with a Y, and Tipper. Yeah, as I said, a resilient leadership development coach and independent consultant. I used to work for organisations as a consultant. I now run my own business, so this feels very well aligned. The conversations Faye and I often have are very well aligned. The previous business I worked to set up an advisory service offer, which is around working with clients to advise their sort of strategy and strategic direction. I'm an engineer by training, by background, a long time ago, civil structural engineer. So I guess, do I like numbers? Maybe something like that. I work with a lot of data, but it's not, I don't do that anymore. But I've always been much more interested in the people leadership style part of stuff. So have worked and developed that, and gone on to manage my own business doing the stuff that I really like doing, leadership development, typically in technical environments because I understand that language as being an engineer. So that's a bit about me. I do like to work with women in STEM and around and entrepreneurs. I've been working with quite a bit as well, so it's quite interesting. So around leadership development for those various different groups. The quote for you there on values, I thought was a nice Elvis Presley one. So values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do. And that was a famous quote by Elvis Presley about values. Of that, it's surprising when you read things like that. Sort of how often people don't actually think about their values when they are so embedded in everything we do, in the way we think, what we do, how we show up. So really worth just thinking about, spending a bit of time to consider. So I would just spend just a couple of minutes just telling you a little bit about the leadership framework I use when I'm delivering leadership development training. Why? Because I think it's often helpful to see the whole kind of, I call it the lid of the jigsaw box, and then how values fit into that and why that's important. So the whole kind of piece I use around leadership is there's four elements to it. There's that clarity of direction. So the colours do significant when you're working through this whole program, but it's clarity of direction. So that's very much around your vision. Who are the people you're going to take along with you on that vision? Why it's important to take those people through, and then the determination you have to drive that through. The orange circle awareness is very important for leaders to have really strong self-awareness, awareness of others in their team, their clients, the businesses they're working with. So understanding what motivates others and where their strengths and weaknesses are. And then that environment, the awareness of the environment you're operating within. So understanding that. That fourth circle, the leadership presence. So that's the very much kind of my ethical code, my values, who I am as a leader. It's almost the presence you have. If you're not in the room, people will know what you would be thinking. So it's a really interesting piece, and this is where your values sit, where they come into in terms of leadership, your leadership presence. So the values you bring, that you hold dear, will be apparent in the decisions you make and how you run your team, how you run your business. So that leadership presence, that's where the values sit. That fourth circle element is resilient decision making. So ensuring the decisions we make are creative. We've thought through the options. They're robust. They're strong. We've got data to back it up, and they're versatile. If things go wrong, we've got a backup plan. We've got things that we know we're going to drive through. So those are those four elements that I work around when I'm doing leadership development training. And what is interesting, I think, the what I do and who I am, it's very much a balance of what I do, the tasks I do as a leader, but also who I am as a person. So those values that I bring. And going back sort of 20, 30 years ago, leadership was very much thought about as what I do, the tasks, what I do. And then the whole kind of research around emotional intelligence with Daniel Goleman came into being sort of 25 years ago. And some really interesting, all the work that Daniel Goleman and the team did on emotional intelligence, the empathy I bring, the understanding I bring, the self-awareness I have of myself, and how do I manage my own emotions. And that whole element came into leadership development and thinking. So the who I am. So if you can imagine sort of 30 years ago, that very command and control leadership style was very much around, right, we're doing this, we're going in this direction, come along, no questions asked. And now very much in the last 20 or so years, it's very much around who am I as a person? How do I understand my team, the others around me? What is it they need? How am I going to bring them along? What influences them? What motivates them? So all of that piece becomes very interesting. I think that emotional intelligence side of leadership and the self-awareness of who I am as a leader and what my values are, it is really important. I just pause there. Has anyone sort of any questions or anything on that? Before I'll just carry on otherwise.
No, it's more.
I'll just
I think it's really interesting the bit that you've added about knowing what someone would be thinking in the room or saying in the room, even when they're not there. And there are some people who you can know so well. You can say that you think, I know what he'd be thinking. He's not here now, but I know what he'd be thinking. And It's quite an interesting observation, really.
Absolutely. And when sometimes you're working with particular leaders or groups of, clients or whoever it is, different organizations, and you spot an individual and you can really, yeah, you get that sense from them, make it very clear what's needed, how they operate, how they work. And they're very clear around that leadership presence.
Mm.
And, you say, Faye, they're not even there and you know what they'd be thinking.
Mm.
So a really interesting part to leadership. So that's just a little bit more about the leadership elements, that authentic, serving, intentional. So you bring your authenticity to it. Very much you're operating with your values, your ethics, and being true to yourself. You're serving the needs of others, and you're being very intentional around it, and you're being positive around the organisation. So, and the impact of that, if you get that right, like I said, you're not in the room, and the best person takes the lead in situations, not necessarily the leader, the person at the top of the tree. It's the person who is best placed to lead in that situation, and other support, and people know each other well enough to anticipate what's happening. So that's where I just thought useful to kind of understand, as I say, that overall leadership framework that value sits within, before we just sort of dip into the values exercise. So a bit about the why and where it sits. So I just thought we could spend a couple of minutes just doing this values exercise that I often do as part of a much bigger leadership development program. And if you just have a pen and a piece of paper to hand, if you've got that, or just somewhere you can scribble a few things down. I don't know if anyone's done this before or knows their values or has sort of worked on this before. Maybe anyone has done anything like this? Is it
I've
Anna
done it.
nodding her head?
I've done it for like a branding exercise for my business, but this feels more personal, more like how I turn up and show up rather than just I don't mean just how my business looks, but there is a slight difference, isn't there?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. Um, Anna, you showing me a piece of yellow paper. Have you got, are you
I've
on
got
mute?
I've got a piece of paper. No, I haven't done anything like this, but I can absolutely do this exercise.
Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. So
Yeah,
fantastic. Oh, we've got someone else coming in the room, I think. Just
got it.
letting someone in. Brilliant. So, yeah, and it's one, share this. I think Faye's going to pop this on the recording on. So do it again. Spend a bit more time doing it, but it shouldn't take too long. So three things to do. So I'm going to give you a list in a minute, just on the next screen. There's a list of a number of values, lots and lots and lots of words. There are many more. You may think of other ones, but it's just a prompt list. So we'll just sort of spend a few minutes just reading through. I'll leave you just sort of in silence, just to read through and pick out 10 or so of which are important to you, and you'll read through and go, oh yeah, that's important to me. That's important. And then we're going to just jot those down on the piece of paper, scribble those down, and then we're going to just think about, right, I'm going to take out any needs. I really need that to live, almost, or I should do that, or I shouldn't do that. Should do that usually means someone else has probably influenced you, or I feel like, oh, I need to do that because X, Y, and Z. But those things that are really important to you. So we're then going to reduce the list from 10 to three. So if you force yourself to let go of all but three that you could not do without, that are really, really deep down are important to you.
Oh, I'm just going to pop someone on mute. There we go.
Okay, brilliant. So does that all make sense? That's clear, fairly simple. Read through, pick out 10, and then when you've done 10, then we're just gonna spend a couple of moments just revisiting and prioritizing. And they do drop out. What if you ask yourself each of the 10? There's lots on here. Hopefully you can see it all. It's slightly, I think is it clear enough? So they're in alphabetical order from acceptance to world peace. For me, world peace would be a need. Yeah, absolutely need that. But going through that, reading through acceptance, accuracy, blah, 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 what are those things that are really important to me? So do you want to spend just a couple of moments, and perhaps when you've got to the end of it, just give us a wave.
So we're going for 10 to start with, Wendy, was that right?
Going for 10 to start with. Going for 10 to start with. So yeah, just scribble them down on your piece of paper. All doing okay? Lots of thinking looks. You can spend as long as you sort of want on things like this, and sometimes some people it's a really quick canter through and it's almost not overthinking it. Some people like to spend a bit longer thinking it all through. So it's each to our own. How are you doing, Faye? You got
Yeah, good. It's funny because the first few sort of were like jumping out at me. First of all, I looked at that, I felt like a child in a sweet shop and I wanted all of them. And
yeah,
then I realized, oh no, no, let's be a bit more discerning here. And then it felt a slower, more considered process. But funnily enough, before you even showed me the list, one of the first things that came to mind was honesty. I, honesty is really important to me and integrity. Um,
yeah,
so it was nice to see that. Um, and I think there is a subtle difference between honesty and trusted, although it says there's a fine line between some things. It was nice to see the
yes,
word,
there is.
yeah. Um,
Mm,
and nice to see, although I didn't put the word beauty down, I thought, oh gosh, beauty. Actually, beauty is really important to me. I don't, it might still make the list, but actually,
mm, mm.
environment is quite important to me.
Yes, yeah, your surroundings and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
But I've also included I won't go through all of them, but family and friendship, you know.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. It's um it is very interesting. As you say, you start to get a little bit more considered. And then I don't know if how others are doing. Hannah, Emma, if you've got your 10 or 10-ish.
Yeah, I found it hard to also to kind of I have a great love of nature that was sort of missing. So I've put that under beauty. That sort
Right,
of
yeah.
it feels to me that that all comes, maybe it can sit under there.
Yeah, it's a good shout actually, and probably is one that should be there in
I guess
terms of to say. I think it's not a complete list, but environment. There is environment there, isn't there? But yeah, nature
yeah.
around you
Maybe
and your
that's not a value,
surroundings.
but it's something that I value nature.
Mm, yes, yeah,
So
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, tricky to boil it down. I could have put
You've got
loads
your
more.
10. Have you started to sort of then prioritize? So think if you had to annotate, if you could just pick up three of those, it does become a bit harder. What can I live without?
Mm.
Very hard.
What are you doing, Emma? Are you
Well, I'm up to eight. I think I'm struggling a bit because there are some things that I would prioritize in a work context and some things I would
Mm,
prioritize in a home context. So what do you advise in that situation?
yes, it is tricky. It is tricky. I think for the first pass, write them all down.
Okay.
Write them all down, and then we're going to, and then when you come down to the sort of boiling it down to three, distilling it down to three, there will be a bit of a well, which overall, be it work or home, is more important to me. Because that starts to drive one thing and another. One thing I've got is family is one of my three, and that's not really, I suppose, if you think of the work context, it doesn't necessarily come up sort of as forefront, you're thinking about family, but actually then I start to think about, well, actually my career, my professional part of my life has actually got to work for my family. So then you think they're sort of separate, but actually one is driving the other. So I do need to think about, how I design my career, how I design my day-to-day work life balance has got to work for what I want to do with my family. So I start to prioritize that one, even though it wasn't necessarily kind of obvious in a work setting.
Mm.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah.
Hi, Chanel.
Mm.
You just joined. You
Hello.
probably think, odd, I've just joined and no one's talking. What's happened? We're just doing an exercise around values, around personal values. And what we're doing is we've got a piece of paper and we're looking through the list and we've just taken 10 of that are important to us and just writing those down. And what we're then doing, the next part of the exercise is to distill that down to three, to really, if we had to let go of some of those, to get down to what are the absolute key things, my personal values that are absolutely critical to me, that are important to me, they're who I what makes me, and we're just trying to distill down to three, so people are just busy looking at the list, picking their 10 and thinking about that down to three. So if you want to have a go, feel free to go through. So it's being recorded and you can play it back and spend a bit more time doing it. But yeah, that's where we're at.
I'm really surprised. I think I've managed to do it already. I'm usually quite dithering when it comes to things like that, but I think I've found it. I'm
Oh, well
quite pleased
done,
with
well
myself.
done. Sometimes it comes to us like that. Um, and almost sort of giving yourself a bit of pressure of time as well, and just sort of saying, I'm going to do this in, because you could
Mm.
spend a long time thinking about it, but sometimes almost the quick gut instinct is actually, no, that's yeah, I know that's why that's important. How you doing, Faye? Have you got?
I've got two, and I'm torn on my third. I've got family and creativity, and then I'm torn between purpose and fun. Um, because fun is important to me,
Mm,
but it's that can sound a bit frivolous. It's not to sound frivolous. I think life is short and it's important that we have fun or joy or whatever, um, but that we can make a difference and have impact while we do that. So
yeah.
that's why I'm a bit torn between fun and purpose. But I think that family,
Because
go on.
I was just going to say, sometimes you might find one sort of actually naturally starts to, in your mind, fit
Mm,
behind the other. So maybe my purpose, so it's purpose and the fun is how I do that, but actually purpose, the
mm,
why I'm doing it, the fun is how I'm doing it.
But being
Maybe that
creative
starts, the
is
why
fun, isn't
starts to
it?
drive. But yeah,
yeah.
things start to sort of settle when
Mm.
you put yourself through this kind of,
Mm.
which one would I choose?
And actually, you've nailed it because there's there's different types of fun. I'm not talking about going to the fairground fun. And you're right, Anna, having working with purpose, you can do that and that can be joyful because you know that you're doing the thing that you want to do and therefore it has become fun.
Yeah,
It's not like I want to have a Monday to find it Friday 9 to 5 and switch off and then go and have my fun. I
yeah,
want to be experiencing joy in knowing I'm living my purpose. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah.
Yeah.
I've put that down as well, creativity and family,
Mm,
and I had humor, which I've ditched, but because I thought actually creativity and it kind of covers that. If I'm happy at work, if I do creative stuff, it usually involves something that has a human element to it and is quite fun. And I'd like to say, or I'd like to think that I have sort of fun, with friends or with family or whatever. So, and I think creativity kind of interlinks somehow. So
mm.
I think it covers it.
Brilliant, brilliant. How's everyone else doing? Emma, are you managing to distill yours down or?
Think so. Well, I think I maybe have five or so. But I like authenticity, I like dependability, and I like fairness. Um, but I think maybe they're all kind of the same thing. So I don't think you can have one of those without the others. So I might just choose one of
Hmm.
those three.
And that's the sort of, yeah, the sort of exercise we do in our mind of, yeah, placing one for the other and asking ourselves, what does that really mean to me? What does creativity, what does authenticity, what does that look like? How does that show up in my day to day at home or at work? Or what are the things I do that demonstrate that? And you start to really kind of get a picture in your mind about what that looks like. So, Phil, have you arrived at you think you've got your three now?
I'm going to go with family, purpose, creativity. Mm.
You had to rank them? Is that's the order you think you've
Actually, I
considered?
think that probably, oh no, it might be family. Yeah, no, I think that is the order. Um, it's surprisingly hard.
It is, isn't it? That last
Yeah.
little bit, if you really have to think. And I'll share with you mine are, so I think it's quite interesting. There's a lot of family, isn't there, obviously, and creativity. Mine's family, challenge, creativity.
Mm.
Um, family, yeah, that's a huge piece.
I've
Challenge, I
got
realise that I yeah, that's how I operate. It really motivates me. I enjoy a challenge. I need to be solving things. Otherwise, the world is too quiet. So challenge, and that creativity, I think, is finding your way through where there isn't maybe a predefined set plan, or creating something from nothing. All of that is really, really key to me.
Mm.
But I think that's interesting. There's a few. Anna, you had family and creativity as well, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, my third one was compassion.
Compassion.
Yeah, I think that kind of fits in with how I see the world around me and sort of nature and how I interact with people, and also when you said world peace, that kind of, I think it felt kind of, yeah, overlaps with that a little bit. And I think at the moment it's something that
Mm.
there is people, a lot of people are very sort of inward looking, and I think I think it's really important to not be just in your own little bubble, but to kind of look out for what's going on around you.
And act with compassion, absolutely. I think, yeah, the temptation to sort of, as you say, kind of, I'm just going to hide away from it all because this is all too big and overwhelming.
Mm.
But something I can do is deal when I'm interacting with people, interact with compassion. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people there with some very, very out there with some very, very difficult challenges in life, and
Mm.
to be able to be compassionate and empathetic is really, is a really key thing in today's world.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But it's, yeah, so many things on that list that matter.
There are. It's a real gets you thinking, doesn't it? You may decide, actually, I'm gonna take four. I'm going to take four. That's the way it is. But this exercise is designed to really, to really sort of bring it down to prioritize and think, well, what are those key ones that are really important to me? How's everyone else getting on? How are you finding it?
I've got family, creativity. Obviously, family, as you said, you don't even need to explain, but creativity, it also brings me inner peace, and it brings me solitude as well. So it kind of overlaps with other things, and humility. And that can also bring me sort of it can bring me tolerance towards others. It can bring me sort of kind of like, it can bring you to how you love people, forgiveness as well. Because if you kind of humble yourself, you know that you make mistakes, so you can be more kind of loving towards others. So I think humility, sorry, covers a lot of the other ones that I did have on my list.
It's really nice. Yeah, sounds really good. And how did you find that the exercise? And you joined a little bit late, but how did you find it? Did you find it easy to do? Did you find it a bit tricky, or?
It was hard because I had loads and I had more than 10, but then I kind of looked at it in a different way and thought, well, it can feed into other things. Health was really, really close by, but I kind of think, yeah, that's a difficult one. But yeah, I put it down to just those three.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Brilliant. So I think, so what I'd say is, yeah, feel free to sort of carry on and thinking about it, and revisit this. It's something that I recommend. I have a think about sort of, every few years, really. And through the course of life, things will sort of move up and down that scale of, from probably your 10 will look very similar, but your 3, there might be a bit of tweaking in there. I think probably if you'd asked me 30 years ago, friendship might have been instead of family or something like that. But things might looked a little bit different. But as you sort of, through the course of life, things do sort of change a little bit, and it's worth just checking in with, is that still relevant? And I'll just go on to a couple more slides. Well, pretty much that's just what we've done, kind of what happened as you let go of those values? How did you make your choice? Look at the 3 you've left, and is there a relationship between them? Is there any connection? Do you see a sort of natural how they connect? What does it say about you? Kind of, so what does it say about you? I'm not saying you need to answer that now, but just it's worth reflecting on and thinking about. And as I said, sort of from the outset, why is it important to do that? Why is it of interest? Okay, I talk to people about leadership development, but it's how we lead our lives. What do we, in terms of those things we hold dear to us, that inner compass, our North Star, what's important? I find if I'm making sort of key decisions about where I want to go, maybe with my career or maybe with other key decisions in my life or my family life, I do tend to check them against those values. So how is that going to impact on my family? Is that going to provide a source of creativity? Is that going to give me sufficient challenge? Because if it doesn't, it's probably not going to feel worth doing. If I don't feel challenged by that, it's probably, to me, it's not going to be worth doing that. So I do check in with myself with key decisions. Is that going to be aligned with my personal values? I think, as I said as well, often you find when you're working with people whose values feel very different to you, you can feel, the first thing you often feel is this huge irritation and annoyance. And why am I so cross about that? Why is that really? Sometimes you have something burning in your mind and you can't let go of it. And it's just that's really bothering me that I was working with a group last week and a lady was talking about she's working in a team and massive frustrations and really inner kind of turmoil around. And what she pinned it down to was she really holds dear fairness and for the team, so all is equitable, all should be fair. And she felt some things were not fair, and this was a real burning issue for her, to the point where she had to have this conversation, difficult conversation with a number of the team members, because things she felt weren't fair. And so sometimes you feel that really when values aren't aligned with yours, others' values, because you can see there's such a huge list there, but obviously that's just a short list. There's endless ones. You start to realize, yes, okay, that's why I feel like that. So having that sort of sense of self-awareness around that can be quite empowering, can really help your decision making. It can, as I said, help your well-being, your sense of well-being. Actually, if I'm constantly pushing against things that are important to me, it's the pushing the block up the hill, they're going to be really hard. You're going to be drained quite quickly and you're going to get exhausted by it. But if you are, riding on the wave, things around you are aligning with what feels right to me, then life's going to feel a lot easier and a lot more satisfying and a lot more purposeful, because you're doing the things that you believe you should be doing. You were put on this earth to do, as it were. So, it's those sorts of things, why it's important. Another thing I think is really interesting is around boundary setting. And I think Faye just mentioned when you jumped on the call around thinking about you saying about I need to set boundaries. Again, if this is important to me, and this is not so important to me, I need to really look after that space. I need to set some boundaries about it. I need to ensure that I'm going to get this from this piece of work or that next project I'm doing. I need to ensure that's coming out of it. So actually, I need to sort of start setting some boundaries and thinking about that. So it becomes a really nice framework for how to move forward that feels a lot more purposeful for you in your day-to-day life, as opposed to, I'll just do a bit of that or do a bit of that and I'll see how it goes and I'll work it out, and oh yeah, maybe I like that, maybe I didn't. There's always a little bit of that, but it's really helpful if you have that self-awareness to be able to test that before you step into it and sort of think, yeah, this should work actually. Maybe it doesn't always, but you've got a good sort of sense of before you set out. And that's just a quick sort of overview of values. You can spend a sort of whole session doing that and going through that in a lot more detail. But I'm going to stop sharing now. Hang on a minute. Just if I can. Sorry, I'm just. Have I stopped sharing?
If you go down to the bottom and you've got the green button that
Oh
says
yeah.
share,
I've got the green. Oh yeah, stop sharing.
that's
So
it.
this is a
There we
funny
go.
thing with it's still saying share at the bottom.
You're
But
done.
yeah. Anyway, the differences with Teams and Zoom. So yes, I was just going to say that's kind of where I was going to leave it. And just for you to kind of explore further, see how you feel. What does that resonate? Just sort of always interesting to hear what people feel and think after that.
Wendy, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm already rethinking my third word now. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to put to Wendy? Or comments, doesn't even have to be a question, an observation.
Wendy, I know that I haven't been on camera and I really apologise for that.
Right.
But I've done it and I really appreciate that. And I think I actually really needed that this week in terms of getting my 3 for work and moving forward with work. But also I've got a lot going on in my private life. And I think actually just whittling them down and then realising what can I not live without, but what out of those 10 values should I already be doing? And then creating the values of where I actually want to be. And those outside of just the main to-dos were really important. I think that's helped me really focus as to why A, I do what I do, and B, where I want to be in a personal capacity as well. So my 3, I managed to get down to adventure, family, and knowledge. So thank you very much for that.
Brilliant. That sounds fantastic, Anna. No worries at all about not being on camera. That's great to hear from you. Adventure family. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I think, yeah, you're right. It's kind of quite timely as well. Beginning of the year, people are goal setting, thinking for what's the plan ahead, and then testing that plan, be it in workplace or professionally or outside of, in family life or personal life. You're thinking, well, what is it I want to achieve? What do I want to do? Maybe I need to make some changes because things aren't quite right. So yeah, it's a really good time to do it. So, I'm really glad that's been valuable exercise for you, Hannah. And good luck with things. And it is quite empowering having that knowledge and that self-awareness to just check in. And it feels like I always feel like there's a sense of control you're taking in it, which is empowering in itself. If you kind of start to kind of feel the sides of the problem you're dealing with, and actually, why am I making these choices, and so forth, and feeling then grounded in the decisions you make because they feel right.
That was lush. I feel really good. Feels like my brain feels like I've had a massage or something. It feels really lovely.
Oh,
I'm sure I can't be the only person who's feeling this. It feels really good to me.
that's brilliant.
Wendy, thank you so much. Will you be able to send us the slide deck as well? Would that be okay?
I will send you I'll ping
Yes.
those over to you. I'll
Yeah.
email those. Do I have your email, Faye? I think I do. I know we're
Yes.
always WhatsApp, but I'm sure I've got your email. Yeah.